Hey, what's going on, Freedom Life Church? Man, what a week it has been. I mean, we're still in Mark 1.
Yeah. We're gonna get very familiar
With Mark 1.
Get comfortable.
I was making a joke about it with him the other day, and I was like, yeah, so Mark 1, huh? He's like, yeah, it could be 8 parts, but we might just try to keep it at 4.
Yeah. Good try. We didn't make it.
We didn't make it. But I'm excited. I know Mark has been super fun for you, and I know, honestly, it's been fun for me.
Yep.
Just reading along and going through it all and just seeing how Mark describes the gospel is definitely interesting.
Yeah.
And even in chapter 1, it's definitely more interesting than, not saying the other gospels and the gospel aren't interesting, but it's just how he's very direct.
Yeah.
And it's been pretty.
I actually took a second to mention that again this week, just because the text that we read specifically this week had the word immediately in it.
Yes.
Like 2 or 3 times in 5 verses. I mean, so it really, again, kind of amplified Mark's kind of urgent approach. Mm-hmm. And I love that. Mm-hmm. And I think it'll be phenomenal when we get to walk through the Gospel of Luke or something like that, because the analytical nature by which he approaches telling of the gospel is really cool. I love that aspect. And so all the Gospels bring a really unique approach. But Mark is certainly
absolutely
different in that regard, that he just doesn't spend a whole lot of... he doesn't set you up.
Yeah.
He doesn't really set it up. There's not a whole lot of backstory. It is, you're in it. And so from the very beginning. And so the bullets are already flying and stuff is blowing up, and you're already in the opening scene of the movie is already explosions and fire and gunshots, and I mean it's just and you're in it and you're like, well, what's happening?
What's going on?
And then the main character really comes to the forefront. Mm-hmm. Verse 1.
Yeah, you're
Jesus is there, and so I mean it's been fun, and so that's the reason why we have not been able to escape chapter 1.
Which is great. And how many weeks is this now so far?
And I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm not going to apologize for it.
Mark 1Z, right?
Yeah, this is part 1Z at this point.
Well, is there anything that you feel that you left out, or that you want to just add on to on what you presented on Sunday?
Well, I'd certainly left stuff out because I actually made the reference, all kidding aside. Mm-hmm. This sermon really could have been at least 2. I could have divided up into at least 2. We really probably could have done 4 in just those 5 verses, because I really enjoyed it, just because I think, at least my hope is that we approached it from maybe not necessarily like a profound, nobody's ever said this before, because maybe they have, maybe they haven't. I have no idea. But I think approaching it, at least in a moderately different way, the text about becoming fishers of men. Yeah. Every sermon I've ever heard over this text really just centers in on that statement, and then that's about it. And so I really enjoyed, and that's great, but I really enjoyed being able to kind of look at it from the standpoint of discipleship. And that's really kind of what I wanted to do with the text, is look at it from, this is the beginning. I mean, this is him choosing his disciples, like the 12. I mean, that's really what it is that we're seeing him choose the 12 specifically. Obviously, he has more than 12 disciples as the book goes along. And as the world goes, I'm a disciple, you're a disciple. Like, he has more disciples, but this is specifically, we're getting a glimpse at Jesus choosing the 12. I mean, this is a big deal, what he's doing. But then getting a chance to kind of see the beginnings of that, I think is really good. And I think sometimes that gets lost on us because Jesus makes such a great statement that, hey, follow me and I'll make you fishers of men. So then we tend to get lost sometimes in the moment that this is Jesus literally reaching out to individuals that are just living their life, maybe with a hope for the Messiah or maybe not. we're not really sure where all of them are at this point with the Torah and their Jewish, their Jewish background and things like that. We don't really know exactly where they are. All we do know, because of what Mark lets us in on, and actually Matthew and John and Luke all tell similar stories, but you really see this like immediate. Their life is impacted and they move towards Jesus. And so you get to see this really, and we didn't talk a ton about this, but it is really that aspect of when you really see Jesus for who he is, you don't say no to that. You don't. The human heart does not say no when you really see him. So some people might be out there, and this is something that we did not get into because I just didn't feel like it didn't really fit. So it honestly didn't stay in my thought process as far as the sermon goes very long. But it is something interesting to think about, is that some people say, well, some people, say no to Jesus or whatever. And I get it. I get what we mean by that. Like they rejected Jesus. Like I get that. Even Peter uses that language. Jesus is a stone that is rejected. And so I understand what we mean by that. But in reality, if you really see Jesus for who he is, so the rejection is rejecting a Jesus that you think that he is, or that you've created in your mind that he is. And it's because to really see him is to drop your nets and follow him. Is to drop everything and go after him. And so that's what it is. And so I really think it was cool to get a chance to see that, and I really wanted us to look at it from the standpoint of discipleship and not just fishers of men. I think that that's a part of it, and I think what hit a lot of people that I actually had separate conversations with afterwards, hit a lot of people is that he's calling them into discipleship and followership, and then already has purpose. Already has he's not waiting around for them to go to seminary to figure it out. He says, look, I'm going to make you become fishers of men. And I like that line. He says, I'm going to help you. I'm going to walk you through this and help you to grow into that. But he's calling them with purpose already. And I think that that's important to note. And so I thought it was good to kind of look at it from that standpoint. So two big things that I left out. Obviously, one I actually mentioned in the sermon that I would have loved to spend a little bit of time on. And it's the idea that we see, because Mark's already brought it up. He's brought up from Isaiah's point of view, the bringing back of the people of God from Babylon. But Jeremiah has a similar moment. And so Jeremiah is the prophet. He's going and he's telling people of what God's going to do in bringing his people back and things of that sort. And so you get Jeremiah, and Jeremiah says something very, very, very interesting. He quotes God in like chapter 16. He quotes God about, and he's trying to express to them. He actually says at one point, God says, "For I will bring them back and take them to the land that I gave to their fathers." Like I'm bringing them back to their home. They've kind of ran off on me and started doing a whole bunch of other things, but I'm going to bring them back. But then the next text, God, through the prophet Jeremiah, says, "So I will send out many fishers, and they will catch them."
Many fishers, huh? Yeah.
And then he says, I will send many hunters, and they will hunt for them in every mountain and hill. And so I love that, because God is using the same language that Jesus is using in this moment. I'm going to send out fishers, and they're going to catch them and bring them to me and bring them home. So I'm sending people out to catch fish, to catch men, to catch people and bring them back towards me. And that's the same language that Jesus is using here. And so, but a lot of times we don't see that correlation, I think, mainly just because most of us don't read Jeremiah, to be straight, which is understandable, because Mark's probably a lot better read. But it's really interesting. That's a text there that I think that's always kind of been in the heart of God, to use us, to use other people to catch other people. I think he's always had that in his mind, and then God was already using the analogy of a fisherman catching fish as an analogy or a metaphor for a man reaching out and catching another man to bring him towards the things of God and towards Jesus. And so Jesus is using that language. It's God using that language in the Old Testament. And so I really think that that's a really, really cool. It's not hard to find, because if you just look in a cross-reference in your Bible, it'll probably send you there. I think most Bibles would probably send you to the Jeremiah text. I just think sometimes we don't look into it that far, because we just see fishers and men and we're like, because we get the analogy. It's a pretty easy analogy if you've ever fished before, but even if you haven't, you know how that is.
Yeah.
And so you know what it is to bait a hook and cast your line, but even for them it's a net. It's not even singular. For them fishing would not be from a fishing pole, it would be a net, which is a whole nother thing that we could have talked about, that he expects your haul, if you will, your catch, to be significant.
Yes.
Net-like. So in our day, we tend to think one line, we catch one thing at a time. Theirs would be throwing a net out and bringing in bringing in a huge catch of fish. And that's what your life is meant to look like, and that's pretty amazing.
It's pretty cool.
The only other thing that I did not mention that was actually in my notes, I had it there and then decided, for time's sake, because I was fitting 4 sermons into one, I decided to just not go there at all, but it was actually in my notes itself. And that was giving us a chance to look at 1 Corinthians 3, because we were kind of talking from the aspect of, kind of an all-in commitment and leaving our lives behind. Those were kind of 2 parts that kind of bookend around, I think, 1 Corinthians 3, because I think who we are matters and what we do matters on the earth. And that we're saved by Jesus, that salvation is easy. Yeah. Getting saved is easy, but discipleship is hard. And so, so I think, looking at it from that aspect, the 1 Corinthians 3 talks about, he actually paints a picture like a building. He says, this is God's building. And Paul says, I'm an expert builder. Yes. I've been building a long time, and I've built a foundation, but let everyone take care of how they build. Yes. Because nobody can lay another foundation, because that foundation is Jesus. Yes. So we get that. That's the gospel. It's Jesus. But then he says, but however you build your life, whether it's, precious stones, gold, silver, hay, wood, straw, all of that will be there. And then your work will be judged by fire in the end when the day, capital D, comes. Mm-hmm. And if that work is of worth, it'll stand. It'll stand the test. But if it was done for selfish ambition, or if it was done just for you, or if it was done not with the purpose of showing Christ and bringing glory to Him, it'll be burnt up, and that man will suffer loss. Yes. It says, but although he himself will be saved, is what it says. So what it's saying is pretty huge. What he's saying is you can be saved, but then really do nothing of worth with your life as far as discipleship or fishing for men or really being all in with God. There's this real movement here that I think that so often we can come to know Christ, but then we really stifle the work that God has for us, because we're not working to be saved. We have good works because we're saved. Yeah. And so, but I think so often we can kind of stifle what that looks like. Because we just don't engage it, or we engage it for wrong motives, or we engage it with maybe religious motives in mind, or we're just trying to look a certain way or whatever. And that's a really big topic, right? And so, but I was going to kind of put it in there because I wanted people to see that there is a difference between being saved and really being a disciple that's doing the work of God that He has for us. Those 2 things are different. Yeah. And so it is possible that you can be saved, that He could save you, but there's this discipleship is the next step. And that's why we call it that a lot. a lot of people can go to churches and they're like, this is next steps. Go over here. Well, that's what they're saying, is that this is how you're going to grow in your relationship with Jesus. And it's so sad, and it's I really think it's tragic to watch people come into relationship with Jesus and then see their relationship as Jesus as just simply, I get to go to heaven and not go to hell. And I think that, well, now that I really think about it, that's the point that I'm primarily making in that portion of the sermon a lot, was it's not just your get out of hell free card.
Yeah.
But some of us have kind of reduced it to, I want to go to heaven and not go to hell, and I'm coming and I understand that I understand I deserve hell. Yeah. So we understand all the right components to see ourselves in need of redemption, in need of salvation. So we're like, yeah, I am a sinner. I am obviously messed up. I am jacked up through and through. And so I know that I need Jesus, and I understand he died for my sins so that I might have eternal life with him. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whosoever would believe in him would not perish. I don't want to do that, but have everlasting life. Yes, and amen to that. And then they step into that, and so so many of us step into that, and then that's all that it's been reduced to, is just, I want to be with him. I need him, because without him I deserve hell, but with him I get his grace and I get his love and I get eternal life with him. And I believe that. I know, I confess with my mouth. I believe in my heart that Jesus Christ was raised from the dead, and that means I'm saved and I'm in. But then that's kind of where it has ended for so many of us. And I think that that's the tragedy. And so then what he says, what Paul is saying in the 1 Corinthians text is, so then everything that you're building with your life, everything that you do with your life, one day that's going to be tested by fire on the day when we stand before God. And other writers talk about this. Paul talks about it again in the book of Romans. The writer of Hebrews talks about it. But we'll all stand and give an account to God, all of us. So not just sinners, not just those that have opposed God, but all of us. Yeah. So even those of us that stand with God, and that's Paul's point in 1 Corinthians, is that your life will be laid bare before him and everything will be seen. And the fire of God will consume all the works that you've done with your life, everything that you've done. Yeah. And maybe nothing will stand. But all you'll have is the foundation of Jesus.
That's good.
So you'll be saved. You will be saved because the foundation has been laid. Yeah. But every other part of the structure that you've built around it is worthless. Yeah. You haven't really done anything. Yeah. It's like what Jesus would say, you're the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, then where is that? Then where is it? You're only worth just being thrown out and trampled on. Yeah. Because you're not of worth in that regard. Are you still saved? Yes, the foundation has been laid, you've been saved, but what are you doing with your life? Yeah, like what's happening with your life? And that's that all-in commitment of discipleship. That is making Jesus everything. And I think we really struggle with that. We really struggle with leaving our lives behind, and we really struggle with grasping purpose, which was the next three. So we started with Jesus calling you, and you need that into discipleship. That's the moment of conversion, and discipleship begins there. But then there's this real movement towards this kind of understanding that it's an all-in commitment. And then it's leaving behind our old identity and our sin. Yeah. And then it is walking in the purposes of God that he has for us. Yeah. But so many of us stop at Jesus calls me into discipleship. But that's not what you see James and John and Simon and Andrew do. They drop their nets and move into what God, Jesus, God in the flesh is calling them to do. They get all in on that. And that's what you see. You see them leaving behind what their old identity was and stepping into this new thing, this new identity. They're all in. They're willing to walk away from everything, and they're all in with him. And then they grasp the purpose of Jesus is going to use me. Yeah. And we watch them stumble around in that, and we're going to get a chance to see that. They stumble around with that. They do it imperfectly, but by the time you get to Acts chapter 2, by the time you get into, First and Second Peter, and Peter's really, by the time you get to, First, Second, Third John, and John's there, and you just start seeing these completely different dudes. And that's really what it's supposed to look like, and that's where discipleship is going. Where, for goodness sakes, John ends with having conversations with Jesus himself and writing the book of Revelation. So, that's where it's going. And so I just think that's the reason why I really wanted us to look at it from that standpoint. But like I said, if I would have brought up the 1 Corinthians 3, we would still be going today. Right? We would still be preaching and walking through that today. And so I felt like but it was literally that was one thing that made the cut, if you will, into my notes, into my outline. It made the cut, but then in the middle of it, I just thought,
I know
we need to get going here. And so then we kind of we made the point that we needed to make, and then I just felt like if I open that up, we're going to be in a whole nother thing, because it's a really unique way of explaining it that Paul does. It's a really unique way to do it, and I think I would have to take some time to explain it. And so I thought, well, that's why we do this. And so is for me to be okay with, if we don't cover something, we can talk about it here, and then whoever jumps on to listen might be interested in hearing. There's this other text that I think is really, really, really powerful and really interesting, what Paul is explaining. And you're really seeing the difference between foundation, salvation, that's always there. Like you can burn this place down, but that foundation will be there. And that's the point he's making, is that what are you doing with your life? What's built around you? Because that's discipleship. Discipleship is the building that's built on the foundation of salvation, of redemption, of justification. What's built around that is discipleship. What are you doing with your life? Growing, serving, reaching. What are you doing with your life? That's what discipleship is, and it builds the house on the foundation. And that's what Paul's doing in that text. And then he says, in the end, if you've done nothing to really grow as a disciple, and you've just done stuff for you, then it's all going to be burnt up. But the salvation will be there, but that's all you're reduced to. And there's something really almost tragic about seeing a foundation with no house on it, if that makes sense.
No,
like you see the strength of the foundation, you see the real craftsmanship of the foundation, but you didn't build that. Jesus did that. And then, but with his help and with his grace, we build walls.
We can make it beautiful.
With his help and with his grace, with our lives, we put in a window. We put up a door. That gets in my heart.
That's good.
You know what I'm saying? Like I feel that even right now. I feel that. Like you put a roof on that thing, man. And with the Lord's help and with his grace, you make that place a place where people would want to get into, and say, you've built something different than what my life looks like. How can you show me? And then you pull the blueprints out, so to speak, and say, it starts with a foundation that's Jesus, and you can start there.
That's good.
And then looking at what it does to grow, and I want a skyscraper. You know what I mean? Like that's what I want to build.
That's true.
I want to build a skyscraper that stands the test of time, and that is strong, and that has many rooms of worth. If I'm looking at it from that analogy, if I'm looking at it from that point of view, and that's the way we should feel as believers, is we should feel that way. We should want to build on our salvation. And it's tragic when we don't, because when you pass by a home lot without a foundation. But what's also really cool is when you pass by that new lot with a foundation, and it's got the pipes coming out of it, and the studs are starting to go up, and you start kind of going, whoa, there's some real, man, that house is going to be pretty, man, it's going to be big. That's going to be pretty awesome. Like, look at that. Oh, and I love when it really starts taking shape, and you can start kind of going, okay, I get what that room is. That room's going to be a bathroom. That room right there is going to be a kitchen, and you could start seeing it take shape and form. And then that gets you excited, and that gets you pumped up, and you can't wait to see the final product. And so it's meant to feel that way, and that's discipleship. And so talking about it now makes me wish I would have brought it up in the sermon. But we just
We'd still be going, but it's fine.
We just didn't have time. We just didn't have time, but what a beautiful concept.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great concept. I mean, but if you really truly think about it, I mean, that's exactly what he was doing with the disciples. Mm-hmm. And you hear that beautiful context with Mark, and immediately, and immediately, and immediately.
Yeah.
And you hear that concept of, I'm out.
Yeah.
Drop everything, leave.
Yeah.
And so I love that sense of connection of how he builds that.
Yeah, and God, help me be that urgent.
Yeah.
Help me be
good.
that immediate in my response to you as you call me and as you want to do stuff with me. Help me to be that way. Yeah. Because I think a lot of times it's real easy for us to hold on to our nets. It's real easy for us to consider other people around us. Like it would have been real easy for James and John to go, well, but our dad.
Absolutely.
I think that's the reason why we get Zebedee even mentioned, is because then you see the gravity, the real abruptness of James and John's movement, because their dad is there. Whew. And they go, see you, Pop.
Yeah.
Right. And they roll out, and we don't really understand exactly how Zebedee feels at this moment. We do know that James and John's mom is very much involved in their walk with Jesus.
Yeah.
Because she actually approaches Jesus about her boys later. And so we know that, I mean, on some level, their parents are probably still involved. Maybe Zebedee's still a little salty about it. We don't know. We don't know. And so it's pure conjecture, but I'm sure it freaked them out. But we see the gravity of it because I think so many of us would consider what somebody else would think.
Yeah.
We do that all the time. We worry about, what will somebody else think if I really go for this?
Absolutely.
If I really go after Jesus, what are they going to think about me?
Yeah.
How are they going to feel? Well, that'll probably hurt their feelings, or that'll probably offend them. And how many times do we do that? Or, well, but I'm a fisherman. I'm not really that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how many of us hang on to our nets and kind of go, well, maybe later, but what we're meant to see is, no, get in on this, because where he's taking you is far better than whatever it is that you've got in your hands right now.
Absolutely.
So why don't you let that go?
Absolutely.
And then let him lay a foundation, and then let you and him partner together to swing some hammers to build something great with your life. That's discipleship. Yeah, that's what it's meant to look like. And so this is the beginning of where these guys end up later, like we said. I mean, you see Peter break out of the upper room and start preaching the first real gospel message post-resurrection. When you see Peter break out into that, Simon is Peter in the text. It's the same guy. So when you see him bust out, you see the result of him laying his nets down and saying, Andrew, let's roll out. Let's do this.
Absolutely.
Let's make this happen. There's something altogether different about this. Let's leave all this and go this way. Absolutely. And then you see the results of it later when he busts out in the streets. Men of Israel, heed these words, And then he starts telling them, like, listen, Jesus is portrayed as crucified, and you need him. And you see the result of this moment here. Yeah. And so it's really cool to tie those two things together and kind of go, whoa, and that's discipleship. That's what it looks like. And for the rest of the book, if you keep this text in mind, you'll watch Peter and Andrew and James and John really discipled by God. Later on in the text, we meet Matthew, and he brings Matthew, the tax collector, in, and we'll see his moment as well. And then you watch them be discipled by Jesus, and you watch them grow in their faith, and you watch them build a house. Build a structure on the foundation that is Jesus, and it's a very beautiful thing. And the finished product is going to be a new body and a new heaven and a new earth, and that's going to be the final product. Is you and I are going to be glorified in Him, and so and that's a really beautiful thing. So,
I mean, that's what I'm saying, Mark.
Makes us awfully excited, doesn't it? I might preach all of that again on Sunday. I don't know. We'll see.
That's good. I mean, if you haven't caught the previous messages, I encourage you to go and go to our Facebook channel, go to our YouTube channel, go to our website, freedomlifechurch.net, and just catch up, because I promise you, like, it's going to be a road where Mark is the topic.
What's your new series? The Book of Mark. It's just not. I don't know that it's not super profound, man. We're just gonna walk through the Bible together.
Well, man, I know it's gonna be exciting. I know you have some. There's gonna be some great messages in there. This is just the beginning, and so there's gonna be some great messages. The more that we get into Mark and start talking about Jesus, it's just gonna.
I'm excited.
Can't preach, okay? All right. Well, that's exciting. Well, two things. Lead events coming up this Sunday.
Yes.
This coming Sunday, the 18th. If you haven't,
super excited.
If you have never been, it's going to be an awesome time.
Yeah.
If you serve here at FLC, or if you're interested in serving at FLC,
come out.
Show up.
Be here.
6 p.m. April 18th.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a great time.
We've got stuff for the kids that'll be going on here. So don't use your kids as an excuse. Get here. If you serve here, it's an opportunity for us to come together, and it's really important to the life of our church. And so we've got stuff for the kids in the back.
Absolutely.
There'll be snacks and different stuff here just to take care of us. And, it's a great night. I think most people that have been love it. It's a great way for us to get together and connect as a team. And so it's
absolutely.
good. It's good.
And then the other thing is baptisms, April 25th.
Yes, we have people already signed up for this.
Yes.
And so we would love to see more that need to be baptized.
Yes.
Let us know.
That is a huge thing. If you are wanting to be baptized or just want more information, go to our website, freedomlifechurch.net, sign up there, or go to our app, FLC Buoy app, sign up there, or just let us know. Talk to us. We'd love to get you hooked into that area. But man, I'm excited. I'm excited for Mark. I'm excited for where it's going to go.
Yeah.
Cannot wait till Sunday.
Awesome.
Catch you guys next week.
See you.